Welcome to another episode of Listen to Nothing, the podcast where we dive deep into the lives of ordinary people doing extraordinary things. Today we have the pleasure of speaking with Greg Bowman. I know him as Bo, a distinguished educator and author whose passion for teaching and joy in learning has left a lasting impact on countless students. Greg brings nearly 50 years of experience in education, having dedicated his career to fostering a positive and inspiring learning environment. Greg is currently a world religions teacher at Leilani School in Honolulu, Hawaii. He is also the author of the heartwarming children's book, Leilani Blessed and Grateful, and the insightful guide, Teaching Joy, Creating a Joyful Middle School Classroom. In this episode, we'll explore Greg's journey from his childhood on the East Coast to his current life in Hawaii, his spiritual practices, his unique approach to education that emphasize the transformative power of joy. Welcome, Greg.
Thank you. I'm very flattered and grateful to be here.
Yes. Yeah, your that one day I met you on the elevator ages ago, and I said, "Good morning, Bo. How are you doing?" And you turned to me and said, "Blessed and grateful, Mark. Blessed and grateful." That has never left me. That voice, your voice in my head. Yeah, I pass that on.
Well, I'm happy to hear that, Mark, because it is contagious. It's a contagious energy, philosophy, and I know every time that we have an encounter, I appreciate that energy exchange,
Mm,
and blessings and gratitude just open up so many more avenues for you to raise your own quality of life
mm.
and to raise the quality of life of others around you.
And how did you go about discovering that as a aspect of life, like a positive changing aspect in life?
It's a great question. I've never looked back and said that this is the moment that
Mm,
um, I was enlightened, so to speak. Um, but I'm sure, like many things, it's a combination of different things. Um, Maybe one might have been uh, basic training in the army when you're stripped of so many different things you take for granted,
mm.
and you're rebuilt. But in the process of being rebuilt, you start to realize all those things that you have had, are going to have, that you may have taken for granted. And then you start thinking about it more, appreciating it more, expressing gratitude more. Um, that might have been one of the steps along the way. I think another step for me, I was fortunate enough to be stationed in Hawaii uh, during my Army stint. And I took from that 3-year period a deep appreciation of uh, the concept of ohana
Mm.
and a deep appreciation of the aloha spirit. And I think along with that, generated that helped generate a perpetual positive attitude and a fountain of optimism that's been with me to this day. Yeah.
Mm. Beautiful. Beautiful. Now, I love that story. I never heard that, and it makes a lot of sense. And I wonder if you experience this. Like, I love the aloha spirit, and I encounter certain elders here who really embody it, and you can see it in their face. They have smile lines. They
Yes.
don't have frown lines. They just and they
And
give off this vibration.
they're quick to smile,
Yes.
and they're quick to laugh,
Yes.
and they're quick to compliment others, and they're quick to engage others in a positive way. Yes, I know exactly what you mean, Mark, and you can
Yeah.
feel it, right? Not
Yes.
only do you see it and hear it, you
Yeah.
can feel it, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah,
And I think it's even more so for us being transplants when we feel it, when we're open to receiving it and we
yes,
actually feel it and experience it. I don't know about for you, but for me, it means so much more.
yes, absolutely. Living in this building, we spend a lot of times in the elevator, right? And we encounter both residents and visitors.
Mm,
Um, so sometimes it's human nature to, if people were kind of zoned into their own train of thought or their own agenda for the day, just to get through that elevator ride and be on their way.
mm,
But I've found, again, looping back to that blessings and gratitude, um, just a short exchange. And I will say to them, "How are you today?" And they'll give me some type of polite, short response. And they'll ask me, and I will invariably say, "Blessed and grateful." Well, Mark, as soon as those words are out of my mouth, that facade, that wall comes crashing down, and they just turn around with an affirmation of, "Yes, we are."
yes.
And they'll go over and list many things for which they're grateful that, heretofore they were kind of just, it was residing within them, so to speak. Yeah.
Mm, yeah. And so how do you tie joy into that? So I know one of the subjects of your books and your uh, wanting to educate people is on joy.
Yes. Um, I think joy is all, it's tied into the aloha spirit, it's tied into the positive attitude, it's tied into the energy field. I tell some of my colleagues, and they kind of look at me with a raised eyebrow. I said, sometimes I can actually physically feel the energy field in the classroom,
Mm,
the positive exchange of the energy, and I can.
yeah.
And I think, first of all, you know, it's teaching is a very honorable profession, and it's a calling, and we're blessed to have that opportunity to make that much of a difference in so many people's lives. And when you realize that, um, it just ups your game. You raise your own game when you realize what a difference that you can make in young people's lives. Um, and then part of raising that game is joy. And
Mm,
I've got a lot of sayings and life lessons. And one saying I used to have with my class officers is, "Hey, guys, if we're going to work this hard, we're going to have some fun along the way." And
yeah.
so, let's have some joy. Let's make this a joyful place. And one of my mantras is teaching should be fun. It should be something that people look forward to, that people can come in and relax, engage, learn. Um, and there's a lot that goes into that joy.
Mm. It's
I have,
probably easier to learn. Sorry, it's probably easier to learn if you're in an environment of joy than you are in an environment of rigidity or repetitiveness.
yes, yes,
You know,
yes,
filling a curriculum, if the professor or the teacher or the educator feels like they have to go to work, feels like they got to pay the bills or feels unappreciated.
yes,
The
yes.
students the students have to pick up on that vibe, like you're saying, when you walk into the room.
It's a good place to be, and it's a place they look forward to coming to.
Mm,
I'm a big music person, so I've constantly got music playing as they're walking in. Um, we have what we call bonus points from the universe. It's an interactive game that's like real quick call and response, and they can get points for, what was the song that was playing, who was the
mm,
artist, what's the menu of the day, what's the trivia of the day, what's the SAT word of the day, da, 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 da,
mm,
rapid fire, what's the magic word, which is some facts or concepts that we had the day before in a playful way.
Mm.
And and we also have a classroom covenant that I think helps ensure that joy. Um, and I go over it with them the first day. We agree to it, and we revisit it periodically in a serious way. And the covenant is this: Hey guys, I'm gonna make you a deal. Here's the deal. Here's my promise to you. Every time you walk through that door, I'm gonna promise you three things. One, I'm gonna maximize your learning. Two, I'm gonna minimize your stress. And three, we're gonna have a little fun along the way. You're part of the covenant. Simply give me your best effort and give me your best attitude. Is it a deal? Can we air fist bump? And they're like, yeah, I've been waiting for a class like this.
And what
And
age
it's
group is this, Bo?
this is eighth graders.
8th
They're
graders.
13, 14-year olds.
Wow.
And so, and part of that, what you were talking about too, Mark, as far as joy, is getting them incorporated into the not only being on the receiving end of the lesson,
Mm.
but the overall lesson. Them being part of the lesson, they take ownership. So we talk in teaching joy. One of the chapters is horizontal classrooms versus vertical classrooms.
Interesting.
So the vertical classroom would be a traditional classroom with the teachers up front, the teachers in charge, the teachers disseminating information. The students are sometimes passively receiving the information. Um, and depending on who's delivering the information, it has potential to be rote and or dry.
Mm.
Um, that would be considered a traditional vertical classroom. We suggest considering at people's own discretion, try horizontal classroom, where that field is more of a level playing field where you give some of your authority or some of your expertise um, to the class,
Mm.
to the students. So you open it up and create several leadership opportunities for them to teach, for them
Mm.
for them to be actively involved, for them to have a say in the way the lesson goes. So, that is, one concept. And another concept that's closely related to that is a classroom coach. So, I've coached many athletic teams in the past. There's sometimes I carry that into the classroom. But once I started employing that, I found um, just through experience that it has many merits. And I'll introduce myself not only as the teacher, but their classroom coach.
Mm.
Uh, and a classroom coach, again, would be a more forward thinking way of approaching it than what we sometimes call the sage on the stage,
Mm.
right? Where all the energy and attention is directed toward the teacher. In a classroom coach, there is no them and us. It's we. It's
Yeah.
we. So I'm your coach. You're the players. We're all here to get a W out here today. We're here to win this lesson, right? So, like, let me give you some pointers. I want you to give me your best playing. You've got some say in this too. Tell me what's your strength in this
Mm.
game. Let's play to your strength. Let's do it. Let's have some fun with this thing. And I want you to own this thing as well. So um, that classroom coach is another related concept that to me helps provide that joy and makes for a more of a joyful classroom. Yeah.
Sounds amazing. I wish I had a teacher, at that age like you. I mean, I didn't get that type of teaching, but a little different until I graduated high school and went off to art school because there's no like, in art school, there's no real way to contain it. You know what I mean? You have to give so, like, I went to San Francisco Art Institute, And of course, part of the curriculum is history and, to meet state requirements and government requirements, you have to have certain courses. But the way the professors, teachers, whatever you want to call them, coaches, I don't know if they were coaches, um, the way they designed the course. So when we're studying World War II, we're not just going over the wars, the whatever. They covered propaganda art, the role art had in this time, what was going on. And we were all super engaged because, we're creative types. We're not intellectuals, so to speak. You know what I mean? Some of us
But
are,
once
but
you find out that it's all interconnected,
yeah,
it gives it a fresh you're looking at it with a fresh lens, right?
for sure. For
Yeah,
sure. And then I've carried that into my regular life because, I see things differently, and that's okay because I can relate it back to, the subject at hand.
yeah, yeah.
So, what role does when you're speaking, and I've thought about this before with my interactions with you, you're kind of like a John Wooden. You familiar?
I I'm very flattered.
Yeah, you
Yeah,
have that kind of
very far there, and,
air about you. Um, and I know you to be a person of faith. Is that safe to say?
yes, yeah.
How does that play into your being Greg Bowman, your being this um, educator slash coach leader?
That's a great question, in particular because what I teach is world religions,
Mm,
and so, I have my faith, but that particular course, as we tell them the first day in the syllabus, we're not here to proselytize in this class. We're not here to preach.
mm,
We're here to teach about various different religions. And so, circling back to your question, I know it's easy for me to adhere to my faith and yet learn and teach about several other religions at the same time. And one thing that we find out together,
mm,
because I learn along with them as well as teach them, is there's many more similarities among the different religions in the world than there are differences, right?
yeah.
And and you can pick up on a lot of little very interesting things, and that I think they can really coincide
Mm,
together alongside one another. It's they can be, don't have to be mutually exclusive, right?
mm.
Yeah.
Now, is
So,
this an elective course, Bo, or is it a required course that they take?
well, at Leilani School, which is technically a Christian school,
Mm,
it's a required course
okay.
uh, in the 8th grade, and then later on, they also have to take a required course in Bible studies.
Mm,
But before they take that course in Bible studies, um, for a real in-depth look at the Judeo-Christian uh, creed, um, the school wanted them to have a wide latitude, more of a global
mm,
exposure to
mm,
lots of different things and different religions, to understand people,
mm,
why people eat what they eat, why they dress how they dress, why they talk like they talk, why they pray like they pray, um, their mentality, their thought, their priorities, and to me, that just makes for a better world,
mm,
for a more harmonious world. And so, back to your original question, Mark, one of my many blessings is being able to teach that course because I'm able to maintain my own beliefs and find strength through trying to make the world a better world
mm,
through that teaching and learning and enabling them to raise their own quality of life. Yeah.
mm. Now, so 13 years old, you're in a world religions class. I mean, many of us don't do this till we're in university when we start to study philosophy and other things. Um, how how receptive, how open, how eager is a 13-year-old to learn about religions?
Not very. Not very.
Yeah.
For the most part, not all, but for the most part. Um, Many have a preconceived notion of religion, and at that age, they've only gone through so many developmental stages of what religion means to them and how they've been exposed to religion. And many of the time, it's something that they view as being mandated on them or imposed on them.
Mm.
Uh, and you got to remember, I mean, they're 13, 14-year-olds
Yeah.
too, so they've got a lot on they've got a lot on their plate,
Yeah,
and
for sure.
they are going through tremendous growth in many different ways. So when they walk through the door initially, and most of them, I can see it and feel it, are like, oh man, it's gonna be religion class.
Mm.
But I'm quick to tell them I try to get up the energy, and I try to maintain that high level of energy and enthusiasm at all times. And I tell them, hey guys, let me tell you something. This class is going to be unlike any other class you ever take. And here's our covenant, and we go through the whole. And I throw in a little bit of philosophy too, between the teaching joy, creating a joyful middle school classroom, and then um, to further elaborate on response to your question of their initial thought process coming through the door, um, to address that, my pretty much my first week or so, it's I just myself in my own head, it's my boot camp for them, so to speak.
Mm.
We concentrate on building community and classroom routines because
Mm.
we have so many different routines that there's a lot of mnemonic, a lot of it's verbal, some of it's nonverbal, and kids love routines.
Mm.
And they love to be a part of that routine, and so that also helps out with the classroom management part because if they're so heavily engaged in the routines in a positive way, there's not much space or time for any kind of negative misbehavior or interaction.
Mm.
So, yeah, that emphasis on building community and really getting to know them. Um, and I have them ask them for extensive bio sheets, their brothers or sisters or families, and because I know many of them after so many years, you kind of get recycled families, and so
Mm.
once they know that and we're tight with their big sister or big brother, that immediately helps cement a bonding relationship with them as well. Um, but yeah, I found that establishing routines and building communities really paid off
Mm.
in that sense. Yeah.
Mm. Um, where does spirituality fit in to your understanding in like, is religion separate from spirituality? Is spirituality a part of religion?
That's another great question that sometimes I find myself asking myself
Mm.
that question. Um, and we had a discussion on this in class, and I'm going to answer your question by forwarding some of my eighth grade students' answers
Oh, beautiful.
to that question.
Mm.
And their answers to that question were something like, um, well, spirituality is more like what type of person you are, and role model, and being a good person, and being kind to others. Um, Religion teaches those things, but there's more ceremony, there's more formality, there's more bureaucracy, in religion. And their words, um, I sometimes feel more free talking about spirituality. So interesting. Yeah.
It's very interesting.
Yeah.
It's very interesting. It's almost as if, as you're saying that, I'm getting the image of religion being your pot, your pan, your spatula, and then the spirituality being the stew that
Yeah.
comes out and we eat it and it's nourishing.
Right. Right.
One's like a facilitator or a structure that allows for
Right.
spirituality to incubate.
And they're both very good.
Yeah.
They're both very good, and I think there's a place for that for everybody,
Mm,
for both of them. Yeah.
yeah. Beautiful. So, Leilani Blessed and Grateful. Um, Children's book, 2022. I ran into you downstairs by the mailboxes. Oh, excuse me. Excuse me.
Bless you.
I ran into you downstairs by the mailboxes when you had your first printed copy. You were showing me it. Um, I could feel your enthusiasm. I could smell, I could taste how excited you were about this book coming to print, but there was an incredible level of humility and gratitude. You're like, oh, we were so lucky to find this graphic artist, and oh, look at how beautifully she did it. And blah, blah, blah. I mean, it was just, I. It's a great story.
Thank you.
Elaborate, please.
Yeah. Well, thank you for picking up on that because all of that was it, everything you say is so true. Um, you know, that book itself. There's a whole backstory to that. Even the creation of that book. Um, another one of the blessings in my life is one of my co-authors is Alan Suamori, who's an eighth grade history teacher at
Mm,
Leilani. And we would, for exercise, we'd often walk around Kopilani Park. Uh, he loves he's a big swimmer as well. He's a beach boy, calm a beach. Uh, but as we're walking around the park, we both also had an affinity for Queen Kapilani and King Kalakaua. And when people would greet us, we'd say, as you had said, how are you doing? And we would say, genuinely blessed and grateful. And sometimes they would ask us, well, how so? And then we would quickly reel off the different things. I said, one thing, look at this beautiful park that Queen Kapiolani and the king gave us. Look at that ocean. Look at the diamond. Look at this, right? So I'm not sure what was the origin of the um, creation of the book. And for me, and another one of my blessings is for Alan and me, um, it was sort of a yin yang type of energy. Um, he's a far superior writer than am I. Um, and I mean, he can do clinics on and does do clinics on writing. And he's a writing teacher as well as history. For me, I'm more of the storyteller. I for whatever reason, it's easy for me to put my student's hat on and think as a student, um, or think as a younger child.
mm,
So when we put those two energies together, that's what resulted in Leilani Blessed and Grateful. And so that was a magical experience and still is in many ways for us. He had written some books before, adult books, no children's book. I had never written anything before.
mm.
And so we start writing this. Um, when I started writing this, I was 70 years old. So
Wow.
So, never too late, right? And so I went home. As you know, we got limited spaces in our apartments, and I had that urge just to start putting pen to paper. And I started, and I'm an old-fashioned kind of guy. I'd rather write it by hand than on the computer. So I'm looking for paper, and I didn't even have any paper in my apartment to start writing. So the initial draft, the original manuscript, is written on the exterminator's report in between lines.
Oh,
It's
beautiful.
with stick figures and so we've kept that. So when we talk to kindergarten, 1st, 2nd, graders, and they're starting to write their books, they draw inspiration from, us saying, "Look, this is how this started, and this is how it finished.
Mm.
You too can do this," right? So, yeah, we were blown away. We were blessed to get a really, very talented illustrator. The publisher, gave us some choices. We chose the right one, and she was great. And we worked well as a team, the publisher, the illustrators, and the author. Um, Mark, within 3 weeks after the book was printed, we were blown away because we had no preconceived notion of how it
Mm.
was going to be received. We were blown away by these 3 things. First of all, the state librarian contacts us and says she liked it so much she put one in every public library, all 51 libraries in Hawaii. 1 week later, we get contacted by the governor's office. The First Lady, Dawn Ige, said she liked it so much she was making it part of an initial uh, sister library program with Japan. So she took it to, I think, Hiroshima and Okinawa. And then 1 week later, we get contacted by the state of Hawaii saying that our book had been chosen to represent the state at the National Book Festival in Washington, D.C. um, over Labor Day weekend. And that, so each of the 50 states gets one booth and one adult book that best represents the state and one children's book that best represents the state. And they chose our book that we were just completely
Wow.
blown away and still are. Yeah.
I just pulled out my headphone there. So 3 weeks after it's published,
After it
the
was printed. Yeah. Yeah.
after printed,
Yeah.
the library contacts you. How how are they getting it? Like, how is it coming onto their radar? They must get lots of books, right?
Well, I think that's part of the publisher's um, role, is to promote and get it out there. And um, so I'm not sure exactly how, but we always assumed that publisher had a role into it, right? So,
Yeah, I think there's a higher power working there. I mean, 2 months and you're
and then Barnes and Noble has it in their front window, plastered all over,
Yeah,
and we're reading to kids. Kids are, we taught them this call and response. The call is, "How are you?" And the response is, "Blessed and
that's been great.
grateful." So they're echoing this as we're walking around school. There's a pocket of people over here and a pocket of people over here.
Wow. That's interesting. That reminds me, there was I went to an Episcopalian school growing up. I went kindergarten through 12th grade. And there was a visiting pastor. I'm trying to remember his name. I can't remember it, but he used to just walk down the hallways and yell out in the hallways. We're in class. It's great to be alive. And everybody responded, joy, joy, joy. and, like, we didn't know he was coming, and he would just show
Yeah,
up, and you
yeah.
hear it, and then, like, down the down the hall, we're, like, hear him, so we're opening the door and coming out and waiting for him. He was just this jolly old man who, you know
I love that. I love that. I
Yeah.
love that. What did he say again? It's
It's
great to be
great to be alive, and our response was to be joy, joy, joy.
I love that. I might
Feel
if you
that
don't
one?
mind, I might adopt that.
Yeah, it's his, it's not mine, you know?
That's
Well, and Bo, that kinda reminds me onto another story. So, I lived in Japan for a while,
yeah,
and I lived in a monastery over there, and I visited other monasteries, and I remember a teaching one of the Zen masters talking about, cicadas, locusts, they call them semi in Japan. Some people find them really annoying, right? The sound, it's annoying or whatever. And he said that, and I'm probably going to mess up the actual science behind it, so forgive me, any of you scientists, but they live underground for like 7 years. And then when they come up, they live for 2 weeks and they just sing their heart outs because they're so happy to be alive.
yeah, yeah. We had, I'm originally from Maryland, and so we had cicadas there, and I think it was once every 17 years or
Is
something.
that what it is?
Um, and and you're right, many people would find that very annoying. I mean, it can get loud as well. I mean, it can get loud as almost a lawnmower sometimes. But I always found it comforting. It was like white noise to me. I just embrace it as nature and
Mm,
just went with that flow, But
yeah. But I love that metaphor of, we've got this short time,
yeah,
we can choose to be happy or we can choose to be sad. So why not choose to be blessed and grateful?
yeah. That's one of my many philosophies in life, Mark, is generally speaking in life, you're going to find what you're looking for.
Mm, yeah.
So if you're looking for trouble, you're going to find trouble. If you're looking to find positive attributes in other people, you're going to find positive attributes in other
Mm,
people. So as you're saying, if we're in pre-production for that amount of time and we got X number of minutes on that stage, make it count, right? Right? Frame your own reference there. I love the way he looked at that.
mm. So circling back to the 13, 14-year olds, we're post COVID, so much change in the world, so much change in the realm of education. Um, what are these? Are you seeing like a theme of what they're struggling with, what their how do you say their obstacles are?
Yeah, yes, and COVID really set a lot of people back, and a lot of people are still feeling the effects of COVID. We were fortunate in our school. Our school took the lead on going back with many, many different precautions, um, and I applaud our school. Did a wonderful, magnificent job with that. But our students, and like I'm seeing everywhere I go, I see students. One obvious thing to me, Mark, is, and I think it's a double whammy. Um, you're talking about the challenges. One challenge that jumps out at me, and I think it's for two reasons, is engagement and social engagement
Mm,
with their peers. And I think COVID is one reason because of the periodic isolation and their overuse of technology is another. Um, so that's an issue that we try to address. And
mm,
I set that up through selective grouping. I also address that through student teaching. Our last two units are on um, Christianity and Islam. And so during those units, um, I structured it as so they teach the class. I'm teaching them how to teach,
Mm,
and they're teaching the content
mm,
class. And they're doing it by um, following a lot of the axioms in teaching joy, right? Of just getting people, getting the rest of the class involved, keeping it light, getting a variety of activities, making it fun, making it interactive. Um, so and I talk to them too, and it's so strange because once they get done that student teaching unit, they become much better students themselves.
yeah, yeah,
And they were like, "Man, I never realized teaching was so hard. It took so
yeah,
much prep to get this one period right." And so, and another thing they learn is through I touch on this with them is, and it's in that book, and it's a section on organic discipline. Traditional discipline, somebody misbehaves, they're called down by the teacher, they're assigned to detention or sent to the office. There is a negative energy created there. Um, but I talk to them about this, and it's in the book as well. I give an example to them. Here's an example of organic discipline. You've structured the classroom in such there's practically no discipline to address.
mm,
They're so engaged and so busy and enjoying it. Um, but periodically, when it does come up, I give this example. I had um, a boy and a girl um, came late to class, and more than once. And I'm starting class, and we're looking at those two empty seats, and the rest of the class is like, yeah, they're on their way. So I meet them at the door. So instead of the traditional, I went this route. They start off, well, she let us out late and it's a long walk here. And I'm like, stop. I'm just going to ask you a couple of quick questions. Guys. Number one, do we work hard in this class to establish a positive learning community as one Ohana? They're like, yeah, we do. And I said, you're familiar with Kapuna? They're like, yeah, we are. I said, here's my last question. Would you deprive a grandfather from spending quality time with his grandchildren? And they're like, of course not. And I went, and they're like, my God, I'm so sorry. I'm so, but we'll never be late again. And they never were late again.
wow,
And it was a positive, it was positive bonding, right?
wow.
Yeah. So,
Yeah, I mean, that's a drawing out, and it's something that they can actually relate to,
yeah,
you know,
yeah,
being punished, being reprimanded, they can just be like, well, that's who I am. That's what and then they begin to identify with being the kid who's late, just like the class clown or the whatever.
right.
It becomes their role and they play into it for whatever, because they get attention.
But if you can take corrective action in that positive vein and turn it around, it's value laden, and they
Yeah.
examine their own values and they appreciate your method
Yeah. Yeah.
and you know so
That's
that's just another
fantastic. That's
yeah.
fantastic. So I got a question for you too. So you've been an educator for a really long time. Um,
1973 I
wow.
first started teaching.
So wow. So, you must have seen incredible changes. Is
Yeah.
there you spoke about spending too much time using electronics or social media or, whatever it is. I think distractions have gotten probably bigger. Is there a difference in the way that the parents are teaching the kids? Because the reason I ask this is because I know that when I was a kid, if we broke the neighbor's window, we had to mow lawns or shovel snow or do something to make the money to fix the window. If we got in trouble at school, we got in trouble at home. Mom didn't come and, try to fix things. I notice, you know, in my interactions with young people, I like to treat kids as little adults. And I often get frustrated when the parent wants to respond. Instead of, saying, "Hey, uncle's talking to you," or he just asked you a question and let the child answer, the parent's answering. I was like, wait, I didn't ask you. I'm asking her. Is this something you've noticed?
Um, I haven't noticed that, although um, I've heard other deans and some teachers speak to that. That when they were in school, um, they were told, as I was told, you get in trouble in school, you're gonna get twice as much trouble when you get home.
Yeah.
No questions asked, right? But I'm being told that that's not the case as much these days. That they're quick to um, try to advocate for their child, and I'm not sure, how much of that is what the real story is. Many times lies somewhere in between.
Right.
I'm not a good person to ask that question to, because I try to address those disciplinary things on the front end, and so I don't have a lot of, at least recent, experience with that.
Mm,
But I've heard other people suggest that. Yeah,
yeah. So this is an oddball question, but do you have analog clocks in the classroom or is it digital?
analog.
Okay, so kids are still learning clockwise and counterclockwise and how to read time.
Yeah.
Because I heard that was a bit of an issue that like some children don't know how to count change because they're not dealing with coins and currency. Everything's digital.
Um, I haven't experienced that.
Interesting.
Our school, one thing I that's somewhat related to that is, I know our school still teaches cursive
Hmm.
in lower school. We get a lot of people who transfer to our school in the upper grades from public schools or other private schools. And so I'll sometimes get students who can't read the cursive on the whiteboard,
Hmm.
right? They print it and they go to the keyboard, right? So we try to make some accommodations for that.
Oh, that's fantastic because I think that allows them. I think it's really important to learn those those things because the Constitution was written in cursive, right? So if you don't know how to read cursive, you can't read
Yeah,
old texts.
right. And and social scientists have also would have data that suggests that, like in my class, when we're taking notes, they're required to handwrite those notes. They can't type it on their keyboard.
Or
And so
record it and have AI transcribe it.
right. But the data suggests that people retain information longer and have a deeper understanding of it when they actually write it down themselves,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, I believe that. And that goes back to what you said when you first started writing Leilani Blessed and Grateful. You sat down with a pen and whatever paper you had and started writing. I think that I do a lot of cathartic writing. I journal every morning and I have no idea where it's going to go. But I do notice a difference when I put pen to paper or fingers to keyboard.
Yeah.
There's a different flow.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. I think you're right. I think the keyboard to me, in my experience, is I'm just thinking it's more kind of clinical in approach, and the handwriting is a little more personal,
Mm,
more personalized. It's more of your own voice.
yeah.
Yeah.
Anything else you want to cover, Bo? Anything you want to talk about?
Um, Maybe just a couple quick examples of life lessons.
Please.
Uh, the When we have course evaluations at the end of each semester, and so I've got like 40 to 50 different things they can menu on the board that they can choose from. Things that you like, things you think need changing, things that you would want to do again. Um, and invariably, um, they choose, many times, they'll choose stories. We loved your story, the
Mm,
storytelling. So it underscores the power of storytelling.
mm.
And they also say that life lessons were, and they'll use, it's funny to me because they'll use the word actually in it. The life lessons were actually very helpful, right? And so, just a couple examples. I have this saying that one of my mentors taught me, and it's stay green.
Mm,
For once you start to ripen, you soon thereafter will start to wilt and rot, right? And I use a tomato as an example, right? And then we go into what exactly does that mean? What is a tomato? So when is the tomato green? Well, it's still growing, right? Bingo, right? So the lesson there is always keep growing,
mm,
always keep learning, always keep stretching yourself, always look for self improvement. And I give an example, and I did with several athletic teams. I said, "Hey, we won several championships in many different sports. First thing we do is celebrate. Second thing we do is, all right, let's sit down, stay green. We ain't all that.
mm.
We've still got room for improvement in this offensive end. We still got room for this defense. So, when I see them in the upper grades on the lanai in a playful way, hey, Mark, what color are you today? Still green, Mr. Buff, still green.
Love
You've
it.
got right. And another one is it's a question. Would you rather spend your time or would you rather invest your time?
Mm,
So they ponder that and they're like, nah, nobody ever asked me that before. I said, well, the answer is you'd rather invest your time.
mm,
You often hear people going, I spent my time doing this. Well, maybe you should think about investing your time doing that. And it's tied to a level of awareness. And I use the example of two people can walk in the exact same room, experience the exact same things, and one person can walk out of the room saying, "Man, that really sucked," and the other person can walk out, "Man, that was so enlightening. I'm pumped, I'm juiced," because of their level of awareness. Because one person had a low level of awareness, and another person had a lot high level of awareness. They were actively soaking things in, actively looking, actively listening, actively learning and retaining. So I said, how that's tied in is this: that person with a low level of awareness, this is how they measure their time: seconds, minutes, hours, days, weeks, months. I said, conversely, that person with a high level of awareness, how do they measure their time? Moments,
Mm,
magic moments, moments that they can embrace and go, yes. And then they internalize that. When they internalize it, they've invested it.
mm,
They've kept it with them. They haven't spent it. They're putting it inside that vault, and they're going to take that life lesson. And as they grow, that life lesson's going to grow, and it's going to accumulate interest, because
mm,
the older you get and the wiser you get and the smarter you get, the more that lesson's going to mean to you, because you were wise enough to invest that time, that
mm.
magic moment, and you were looking actively for those moments instead of counting the seconds and the minutes and the hours, right? So they particularly mention those 2 lessons as the ones that were most impactful for them,
Wow.
which even surprised me for 8th graders, right?
Mm.
It's like sometimes you're thinking like, "Ooh, they were actually they were actually listening," right?
Yeah, well, it's more like you're a philosopher than you are, an educator. Like you said earlier with the people who are late, you're a grandfather, you're an elder, and I'm sure that they can feel your genuine level of care for them. You know what I
Absolutely.
mean? And that's having someone who cares for you, someone who believes in you, especially when you haven't experienced it before, but also if you don't necessarily care or believe in yourself
Right.
is, is beyond rewarding.
Yes. There's a quotation to speak to that, Mark. For one to care to know, one must know one cares.
Mm,
That says exactly what you were saying, right?
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I experienced that with some young people here. Like I try to take on the uncle role at some of the workplaces. Um, there's many kids who, have lost parents. You know what I mean? And I push, but I also pull. I don't stand back and dictate. I pull, I lead. I'm like, all right, this is what we're gonna do. Come on, let's go do this.
Right.
And
Right.
then I believe strongly in one, accountability, but also validation. Hey, great job.
Yes.
Good
Yes.
job out there today. A couple weeks later, hey, I'm proud of you. I'm noticing a change in you. Something switched, you
Yes.
know? They don't always know how to receive it. They think I'm messing with them. They think there's a joke coming. I'm like, no, no, I'm serious.
And that's part of that lack of social interaction, why they don't completely understand that or know how to receive that.
Yeah.
It loops back to what we were talking about before. But you're absolutely right. Um, and because they get so little of that in this society, when you make that statement, it's even more profound for them. It's I found just saying something so simplistic as, "I am so proud of you." Like you say, at first they're like they're, they're waiting for a punchline,
Yeah.
and then they suddenly realize there is no punchline. He's serious, and that's a magic moment as well, right? That's
Yeah,
that's an aha moment.
for sure. For sure. And I think that that's our job as elders is to do that. You know what I mean? I mean, you're my elder and I learn from you every every interaction I have with you. I mean, you're authentic, you are blessed and grateful. Um, it's not an act. I observe you from the distance. You're, you know,
And I learned from you as well, and I
yeah,
appreciate that.
it's a give and take. But
Yeah,
it's I love that stay green because it's very much like the Buddhist empty the cup.
yeah,
You know the story, right? So, I mean, you have to keep emptying your cup so that you have more room to, if I know everything, it's over for me. There's no point, I need that curiosity. I need to keep going, you know.
yeah, and that's great, and that's great. That's a, and, that can be, that can be an interesting conundrum, what you're describing, that intellectual curiosity. It's interesting because it can be exhausting,
Mm,
um, because you can spend a lot of good energy in that quest. Um, but that's another, phraseology that I've come up with that I call EE, exhaustive exhilaration,
mm,
right? You are spent, your energy is, you spent so much energy, but you're going forward with it because you're so stimulated
yeah,
by everything around you and how it's going and the people and the activities, and it's carrying you through, right? That exhilaration.
yeah. It's investing. Well, it's like going to the gym or going for a jog or doing whatever. It's physical. It hurts, but afterwards you're so glad you did it.
Right,
You get an endorphin rush. You get all these other things happening.
right.
You know, I think one of the challenges that I personally have, Bo, with I have a very, very curious mind, and I genuinely question things because I'm curious and I want to know the answer, and if I also want to know why I haven't thought of that before, why I haven't heard of that before. So one of the challenges that I have is in certain work environments, people find that I'm abrasive, like not abrasive, but oh, here he goes again. He's got another question. Like I'm challenging. I'm not, I want to know so I can get behind it. I don't quite understand the wisdom behind this. Explain it to me so I can get behind it. What's the thought process? What are we actually doing here?
And some people feel threatened by that approach.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And you know why? For some, because they might not have the answers, right?
Yeah, they're just following orders, you
Right,
know,
right.
but I mean, enlighten me. Is there a good reason behind this? You know.
Yeah.
But yeah, I want to visit your classroom. I want to spend time in there. I want to experience these kids. Was it yesterday I ran into you, right? And you were walking along and, there were a bunch of people hanging out there by the beach park. As soon as you passed, two of the kids go, "Mark, how do you know him? You're their teacher." You were their teacher.
Oh, it was
Yeah.
my kid. Oh,
They're
yeah?
like, "How do you know him?" I was like, "Oh, he's my neighbor, Bo." They're like, "Oh, he's our teacher."
You don't remember their names, do you?
Yeah, but I'll disclose them outside of the
Oh, okay. Oh,
podcast, but yeah. But yeah, it was funny. They were just like, "How do you know him?" Because I
and it
talk
was
to everybody that walks by, and they're just like, "What? What do you know that guy?"
yeah, it was like, they're like on Seinfeld, worlds colliding, right?
Yeah. Well,
My
no, they were
parents
very excited. They're like, "Oh yeah, he teaches world religion, you know." So,
very cool. Very
well, thank you so much for this opportunity to
yeah,
to
thank you.
chat and share some experiences on education. And so, your books are available Amazon
They're all on
stores?
Amazon. Yeah,
Okay.
Leilani Blessed and Grateful, Teaching Joy, Creating a Joyful Middle School Classroom, and we have a, 3rd book now called Kiona, the Kiai, about a young girl who saves her village from a tsunami.
Oh,
Uh,
wow.
they're all on Amazon, yeah.
Excellent. Are you on social media where people can follow you, or you're just it?
I'm not a big social media,
Okay.
person. I'm pretty old school.
You're out walking. Walking and jogging at
Yeah,
4 in the morning.
my social media is meeting people in the park.
There you go. Beautiful. Well, living what you teach, which is awesome.
Yeah. Well, happy 4th of July.
Happy 4th. Thank you
Yeah,
for your service, Bo, and
absolutely. Thank you for your knowledge.
let's both stay green.
Yes, absolutely.
Take care. Aloha, brother. Thank you.
Aloha, and thank you.